Hello everyone, welcome to the project Syllogism and of Inference. Now let us see the problem statement of this project. So basically what is rules of inference? So rules of inference provide the templates or guidelines for constructing a valid arguments for statements that we have already have. These rules helps us to infer a conclusion from a premise. This web application can be used in our everyday life whenever there is a need to create good arguments. So this web application also automates the process of creating a linguistic argument. Now let us see the applications and scenario. This app can be used by students while writing essays to formulate good arguments and also can be used by normal customers to fact check news articles. For example, whenever you are reading a newspaper in your daily life, you may come across many articles, but you will be in a confusion whether it's correct or not. So you can use this application to remove that like we can get to a conclusion on the news events by just giving your argument and getting the logic correctly. So this is about the applications and scenario. Now let us see the tech stack involved in this project. The tech stack involved in this project are Python and Django. Django is used for web application. Python is used for writing the logic of application. Now let us see the sample input and output. You can see that this is the web interface and user can give a major premise and a premise, and if he clicks the submit button he will get the conclusion. So this is how the website works. It has a very user interface. User can easily interfere with the website and easily get the output. And thank you. Hello everyone, welcome to the project The Rules of Inference and Syllogism Solver. So in this project we are going to divide into two sections, and in the first section we'll be getting started with the Django and by rendering some sample text in the browser, and the second part will be the application logic and the deployment progress. So let's get started. So open the command prompt or the Visual Studio Code and then open the terminal, and let us create a folder for our project and name it as rules inf. So you can create a folder by using mkdir, and as we are using Django we need to install Django. So pip install. As in my case I've installed Django before, so installs like it shows requirement already satisfied, but for your case it will install all the required modules. So after installing Django, let us cd the folder that we have created. So rules inf is the folder that we have created. So go to inside the folder, and to create a project, to create a Django project, we will be using a command called admin start project, and we'll name it as again rules inf. So it will create a project for us in our directory. So let me show you the files that will come if we create a start project syntax if we do Django admin. So let us see the folders that we have, files that have been created while using the start project rules inf. You can see that a couple of files have been came when we use a start project. Now let us examine one by one the files that we have got. So let us see that. Let us open settings.py. So what settings.py is basically like it works as an controller for the Django project. So basically we'll be having many things such as debug equals to true. So what debug does is, like, whenever you're writing the code we'll get few errors, right? So debug, if you make it true, it will show the errors that where the code went wrong. And so whenever you are in production, when we are deploying our code in our cloud, we should make it to false, because you can, whenever error occurs, it shows that the code where the code went wrong. So it is not secure to show our code when our project is in deployment. So make sure when you are doing in production, make it to false. And now you can see it hello host. So basically what allow does is like whenever deploying again, like we need to allow the host that is deploying our application. So make sure to keep it as star. So what happens is when you keep star, it deploy like it allows all the servers which are deploying this application. And next we can see that if we are doing it, you can see that what is installed app. So basically when you're doing a big application such as like which contains subproducts of the application, so we can bring every I mean like a project contains sub apps, right? So we can add all the sub apps in the installed apps and work together. So this is not as installed apps. Let us see what is templates. So basically templates does like when we create an HTML file or the front end of our web application, we need to give Django where the particular HTML file is located so that it can do the necessary settings. So in this dirs for I mean the dictionary, the templates array, we can find a dirs dictionary key, and we should give the value name as the templates folder name. So we will be adding this later. And then you can see that there's a column called I mean there's a variable called static URL. So whenever you're dealing with any media content or any images, like basically if you are doing HTML and CSS, we will be occurring like CSS and .js files, right? So to navigate, Django needs some static URLs. So Django can't access the CSS files or external files that are not came from Django. So you should give some mapping like importing OS directory, and we should give base.dir so that the Django can easily find out the files that are located. So this is all about settings.py. Before seeing the URLs, let us see what more about Django by viewing what is MVT architecture by Django. Now let us see the outline about MVT architecture, that is well known as models, views and templates. So whenever user tries to fetch data or give some input to the website, what does the Django do? Django sends the request to the URLs. So URLs maps the request to the views and search for the function in the views. And views will use the models and templates to get the data and show the feed for the user. So the triangular relation between models, views and templates is known as MVT. And in the template section, we will be using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, but we will be also using DTL, that is known as Django Template Language. So we can also write our Python logics inside the HTML files by using DTL. As we are done with MVT architecture, let us know more about this project. So basically, rules of inference provides the templates or the guidelines for constructing valid arguments from the statements given by the user. So user will be providing two premises, and the first one is the major and the other followed is the minor premise. So we will be analyzing them and fitting to the right law in the 8 rules of inference is the motive of this project. Now, before moving to the coding section, let us see how MVT architecture helps us in this project. So basically, whenever user gives an input to the website, the Django framework extracts the input given by the user and sends to the URLs and search for the right mapping function in the URLs that we are going to create. And it sends to views.py to process the backend, and it will by using models and templates it will show the output. So if major and minor premises are given, it will conclude and it will say which premise it belongs to, and it is going to predict the views.py, and views.py is going to render the output in the templates folder which contains index.html. So let's start by creating a templates folder with index.html and then views.py. As you understood the functionalities of urls.py, the remaining one is the manage.py. So basically manage.py takes care about running the local server. So, and this is all about the properties of Django. And wsgi.py is used while deploying our application. Now let us start by creating few files. So the first one is views.py. Let us import few modules. So Django importing HTTP response and render. So we use render module to render some sample text or render some outputs in the HTML file. So As I told you before, we will be also using DTL language, which helps us to use our Python functions inside the HTML. Now let us write a sample function that returns hello world in the HTML file. So this is the function that we use. So index, I mean, we can create any function, right? So I named it as index, and in the index I wrote return render of response and the HTML file. So we should also create now a HTML file in the folder called templates. So let us create a folder templates. So let's name it as template. So after creating a templates folder, let us add a index.html file. So let us name it as index. Now, after going to index.html, if anyone is using Visual Studio, just type shift and exclamatory mark. So it can generate a automated. So after that, let us write in the body as hello. Now that we wrote hello, let us in the index.py, we use.py, we also wrote index.html is the output which we are going to render. Let us write this function inside the urls.py dot so that it can navigate correctly. So let us write path of, and let us before that import basically the functions are located in the views.py. So to import the functions inside the views to URL so that we can easily fetch the functions and can map directly. So let us write the code for it. So to import the functions that are available in views.py, we'll be writing from dot import views. So dot acts as to access all the functions. Now as we wrote this, let us write the path for the function which is located in views. So this is how you write that. So path of dot index. So we need to name the function. If you give a wrong function, it will cause an error. So if you give views dot some index 2, as if you save this file, it will give you error because index 2 is not located in the views.py. As you can see that it gave an error. So let us remove this and let us keep index. Also name it as index. So we are all set to run the server, but there is one more thing to change in the settings.py as I told you before. So that is known as in templates directory, you should change the key value pair of templates. So let us name now this as template. So after adding this, you can see that dir contains templates folder. So now Django can easily map where the index.html file is located. Now we are all set to run the server. Now let us run the server. And so for running server, we will be using python.py sorry python.py server. So we'll be running server by using manage.py, which is available in our local host. Now you can see that our website is locally available in this 127. It's our local mission address. Now let us go to the same website and let us see whether hello is printed in the index.html or not. Now you can see that hello has been rendered in the index.html at our local host. So this is how you render a sample text in the use.py and render using render. So this is how you do that. Now let us focus about the application logic now. So let us go to Colab and let us write the code for it. Now let us write the code for the application logic of this project. So let us start by dividing into two things. So basically user will give us two sentences. One is n, another one is n. So n1 contains the major premise, n2 contains the minor premise. Our goal is to first chunk the n1 into Pn1 and Qn1. So Pn1 and Qn1 should be divided by using n1. So if user gives a sentence, it should be again chunked to two different sentences. The criteria to divide the sentences are whenever it encounters if then statements or and or not statement. So whenever in any one of this logical operators are encountered, it will divide it into two sentences. One is Pn1 and the followed statement will be Qn1. So if user encounters then in the statement, so the index before the then state, I mean, if you find if I'm running, then I'll go to work. So if it is raining, then I will go to work, right? So if it is encountering then, so the statement before then will be chunked and stored into pn1, and after then will be stored as qn1. So the same proceeds for the n2. So let us start by giving a example statement n1 as, if you have password, you have a password, then you can log. So let us imagine this is the major premise given by the user, and the n2 will be, you are not allowed to log in. So what I'm saying is like this, imagine this is the minor premise, the above one is the major premise. So let us run this. So n1 and n2 are the major and minor premise. So to make it easier, we will be converting all the given elements to lowercase. So we'll be not encounter any wrong statement. So n1 lower. So let me convert n1 to n2, n1 lower, and n2 equal n2 dot lower. So lower is used to convert the every character in the given statement to lowercase. So we will be make sure that every, like, there will be no capital letters. So this is the first stage. So later we will be also dividing n1 as a form of a list. So we can easily access a particular word, not as a character, in the form of string. So n1 dot split. So split is used to divide the given set string to a array by whenever it encounters a space. So split is a function which when it encounters a space, it adds two element to the list. So the same to the end. Now as we are done with n1 and n2 splitting into arrays, let us print the final output of n1 and n2. Now you can see that in n1 it chunk, I mean, initially the sentence has been divided into lowercase, and to, I mean, it is inserted in a form of array. Let's see the n2, and you can also see that n2 also has been divided, I mean, converted to a type of list. So now let us write the commands, I mean, let us initialize few variables that I've discussed before. So the first one is pn1 is equals to empty, and qn1 is equals to empty. So pn1 and the qn1 are the chunks of the n1 sentence. So let us come, I'll write it. N1 chunks are pn1. So pn1 and qn1 holds the chunks of the n1. So the criteria that I'm saying is basically if it is encountering or and in the given sentence, it is going to chunk in the particular way. So in the same way, let us write the code for n2. So n2 chunks will be pn2, qn2. So that we have now four different variables. Let us write the code for criteria when to divide or when not to divide. So, for I in n1, so we can access each word in the given statement, right? So after that, if I is equal to then, or I is equals to and I is equals to or. So whenever it encounters then, after, or, the statement should be divided, right? So the first statement will be pn1 is equals to 1 of 0 to n1 of x of I. So this is known as slicing operator. So slicing is used to whenever we want to chunk or divide the sentence by a index position. So what I'm writing here is pn1 is equals to n1 of 0 to n1 dot index of I. So index of I, in this case, if you write n1 contains then, right? So an index dot, I mean, index of then will be the number here. So n1 dot that number will, I mean, gives us a integer value. So what happens is 0 to that the particular value will be chunked and stored in the pn1, and the next chunk will be stored in qn1. And let us write the code. That is simply, it's now the, yeah, reverse of it, right? So plus 1. So what I'm saying is, until the index position should be in pn1, and right after the index position plus first position should be in the qn2. And if you keep a hyphen and nothing, it shows that it should be until the character. So we'll be using like this. So, or we can also post, like, specify some given, like some infinitive word, but Python makes the work easier by not giving anything. So now we are done with pn1 and q1. But now there are few cases where user will user will not give, then he'll use some other, I mean, other constants. So let us keep now if is located in pn1, then we need to write q1 is equals to dot of join of pn1. So what I'm saying here is, basically, if it encounters pn1, it should divide into qn1 is equals to space of dot join. So join helps us in a form where, like, it's a reverse of split. So string to array is known as split. I mean, string to array we use split, and array to string we use join. So this is the functionality of join. So the code which I'm writing here is qn1 is equals to dot join of qn1. So basically I'm just saying that whenever it encounters if, it is going to convert as a form of string, so that we can work it with easier then. So this, if it encounters here, it shows that pn1 and qn1 are anchored successful. So but there are cases where if it doesn't contain then and or. So in that case we will be just initializing pn1 is equals to n. So basically what I'm saying is, if it doesn't encounter then and or, it's simply the given statement is equal to some normal statement. In case like it is not a logically equivalent statement, we'll be again using join and converting the given array to normal statement. So the reason I'm doing is because n1 is an array, right? You can see that I have used n1 is form of split. So I wrote pn1 of dot join. So it helps us to convert into form of a string again. So let us run this. Now you can see the output of the following code. So basically it gave pn1 as you have password and qn1 as you can log on. So is it correct or not? Let us check it. So n1 is a sentence that we have gave to our code. So what we have done is, whenever it encounters if or then or not, I mean, or anything, it should it should chunk the sentence. So you can see that at this sentence we encountered then here. So we will be then first splitting this whole sentence to the one chunk, and after that then position it should be on the another chunk. So you can log on should be on the pqn1, and then the pn1 should be your password. So the then should be eliminated, because if we keep it again it will increase the complexity. So you can see the output pn1 gave you a password, and then you can log on as the second chunk. So you can see that if and then statements have been successfully chunked here. Let us write the same code for the end. So but we will be replacing some variables. Let us see the variables that we are going. So for I in n1 we will be changing now to for I in, and for I in pn1 we will be now writing as, and here as to same proceeds every. So let me now let us see the output of the second statement. So I have just made the changes that I mean, like where n1 is there, I need to change it. Now you can see that. Let us write the print output. So pn2 and qn2. See that you got the output of one sentence, and where is the qn? Now you can clearly see the sentence. it has only you are not allowed to log in, right? So it doesn't contain and or and any other sentence. So and there is no scope for dividing into another chunk of sentence. So now you can see that this part of statement has been triggered and pn2 will be n2 and pn2 is going to join the same sentence and this is the same out. Now that we have successfully chunked the sentences, let us start writing the statements where modus tonus should be triggered or modus bonus. So the first thing that we need to write is we need to keep a statement. Parallel, we need to look at the table that we have showed you before. So let's start by writing. Now, if you see the table, let us start write the code for modus bonus and modus tonus. Now let us write the code for modus bonus and modus tonus. So you can easily see that in the both the premises, the basic difference is that the first major premise will only contain the first chunk and second chunk is empty, because you can see that P is there but Q is not there, and the same applies for modus tonus. So let us write a condition where Pn1 and length of Qn1 is equal to 0, because I have told you again that in the major premise only contains only the first partition. Now let us write the minor premise condition. So in the minor premise it is containing both P and Q, right? So we can simply write Pn2 and Qn2. So this condition satisfies. If this condition has been satisfied, this says that it should be either modus bonus or modus tonus. Now let us write one more condition. You can clearly see that the major difference between the major premise and the major premise of modus tonus is containing a negation here. So negation is known as no. So we need to search not word in the sentence of pn1 or not qn1. So the reason I wrote not and wrote pn1 or qn2 is when user gives some names, there is a chance that not can be divided into qn2, or in a case where it can happen, right? So let us now print. It should be for sure modus stolen. We wrote modus stolens. Now let us keep an elif statement and let us write. You can also see that the major difference as not is not there in modus bonus, right? So let us again write the same, but here we'll be using not. So the difference between in keyword and not in keyword is it searches whether not is present in the string pn1. So not in this, it searches whether it is the particular word is not present or not, and retrieves a true or false. So whenever if contains a true, it is known as it is going to get to the next statement. So if false will never execute the statement. So we need to write not in pn1 or not qn1. So here you can simply write print of modus colon. So here we complete the first two rules of inference. Now let us write the code for addition rules of inference. So you can see that here it doesn't contain the minor premise and it only contains the major premise. So in this case we will be writing an if statement. So basically it should contain pn1 qn1. The reason because you can easily say that the pn1 contains the first partition, but it should not contain not pn qn1 and not n. It is simple, right? It doesn't contain the minor premise, so I wrote not n2, and I kept not qn because it doesn't contain the second partition. So let us add condition the if condition. So whenever whenever the case where pn1 is present and not qn1 is, I mean, qn1 is not present and again not n2, so we need to print that as addition. So this is about addition. So let us write the code for the the next laws of inference. Now let us write the code for conjunction. So in case of conjunction, what happens is it doesn't contain the second partition of major premise, the second partition of minor premise. So you can easily say that it contains Pn1 but not Qn1, contains Pn2 but not. Simple, right? So let us print. Let's copy previous code which here. So this is about conjunction and addition. Now let us write the code for simplification. Here you can see that for simplification it doesn't contain the minor premise but it contains the major premise. So it's simply that contains Pn1 and Qn1 but not n2. So let us simply write print simplification. About simplification. Now let us add this code to the above print statement. So finally, we'll be making a function for that. So whenever we'll be passing pn1 and qn1 and pn2 and qn2 predict the present. I mean, to take the simplification or addition or some like any laws of inference. Now let us write the code for disjunctive syllogism. So what happens here is it contains both pn1 and qn1, but it doesn't contain qn2. So it's simply right we pn1 and qn1 and also pn2 but doesn't contain. So let us keep print disjunctive syllogism. So this is about disjunctive syllogism. This can add. Now let us write the code for hypothetical syllogism and resolution. So you can clearly see that both of them contain all the partitions that says that it contains pn1, qn1, pn2 and qn2. But the minor difference between both of them is in the resolution pn2 contains not. So the first difference you can see that in this code elif pn1 and qn1, pn2 and qn2. So this says that whenever it contains all the partitions, then it for sure it should be hypothetical or resolution. And the next thing is if it contains not in the pn2, it should be resolution or else it should be hypothetical. Now I have introduced a new variable called by_implies. So what by_implies does is it finds whenever we are using an imply symbol in it. So I initialize a variable called by_implies which takes care whenever I mean whenever it finds any imply symbol. When we get imply symbol is whenever if we get if and then statements in the given major or minor premise. So this is about by_implies. Here we conclude that the application logic is finished. So let us see the whole function. So this is the whole function which can do all the 8 rules of inference. This bonus, smallest stone, addition, conjunction, simplification, disjunctive, solution, and hypothetical syllogism. So this is all about the application logic. Now let us write the code for index.html. So let's start by writing the code index.html so that the landing page will be ready. So I wrote the code from boot for the navigation bar. So you can use the bootstrap.com to get this navigation bar for that. And I've also added a alert that you basically says the rules like you need to follow some simple rules like if, then, and, or not. So the strong helps us to make the text bold. And this is all about the navigation bar and the alert slider I kept now. Now I will be creating a container and in that container we will be using two inputs such as the major premise and the minor premise. Let me show you how to use that. So I've created a class called container which contains a form. So we basically fill forms in our daily life, right? So this form helps us to get the data from the user that are major premise and the minor premise. So about the form. Now let me explain you in detail what is happening in the Django. So you can see that I wrote form, but in addition to it I wrote action inf and method equals to post. So what is happening? As I told you before, in URLs, whenever user tries to fetch data, he will click some action button, right? So whenever you write a form and if you click submit, so what happens in the backend is there will be a tag called action and method. So method is a way where the data which has been written by the user will be sent to the backend, and the action is known as the button. So basically, I will be creating a function called INF which handles these computations and gives the right output. So form action INF method post is the way where user will be sending data using the method equals to post. So the post method needs some token. So that is known as CRSF token. It basically authenticates the token and it provides some malicious request. So what is happening is whenever some particular person is trying to fetch data, it should be in a encrypted way. So this helps us to do that. So when we should add the CRSF token to fetch and retrieve the data from the user. And now I've created a text area where user can fill his data, like I wrote a major premise and minor premise in this text area. So, and you can also see that in addition I have even wrote name equal to text1. So as I'm again saying that as if you fill a form, we have multiple columns like write your name, write your address, like right. So how can you get the particular data of a particular text area? So we need to name text1 for major premise and text2 for minor premise. So let me rename this and let us write minor premise. That is the reason. So text2 contains the minor premise and text1 contains the major premise. So this is about the index.html. Let us jump to the views.html. That we wrote this def index, let us write some more function. And as I told you, in the index.html, we will be creating a function called inf, which handles the backend process of this project. So let us write the code for. Now you can see the function called inf. Let me explain you. So I've created two variables that are request.post.get. As I told you before, text1 contains the major premise, text2 contains the minor premise. So as I told you in the collab, we will be creating a two variables that holds the major premise and the minor premise. And this code is fully about those things. So I copy the code from collab. Now you know these things, right? What I wrote. So this is a function that I care about. Def validation is a function which validates whether it belongs to modus ponens or the laws of eight laws of rules of inference. So we have made an architecture where one function will be handling the backend and another function which handles the logic. So let me explain you now. So rules of INF. So INF is a function which handles the get post data and sends the output to the validation function. So validation function gets the PN1 and PN2 and QN1 and QN2 and by implies. So by implies, as I told you before, whenever it finds a negation, a implies, that is if and then it prints by implies will make it to true. So now let us see what is happening until. So as we need to present the data correctly to the user, we have made a dictionary known as params. So what happens in get and post data while writing a output.html? So this is index.html, right? But we need to give this output in the output function also, right? So to do that, we will be creating a output.html which has a attribute called name and string. So as we have told you before, in DTL Django template language, we have a concept where you can fetch the data from the backend and also you can display in the output.html. So let me walk you through the code of output.html. Now you can see that this is the code for output.html. So until here, this is the simple navigation bar that we have wrote before, and now this is what I'm speaking about. So here also I've created a container which holds the name and string. So I'll show you the views.py which I wrote. So what happens is I've created a dictionary which contains name and string attributes. So this name and string will be sent as an data to the output.html. So the name and string will be updated here. So what contains in name? Name contains the modifications that have been done. So name is where we'll be having modus ponus or modus tone, and string is where we'll be getting the conclusion. So name contains whether it belongs to which rules of inference, and string contains what is the final output. So this is about the validation function. So we will be having params, and we'll be passing the params as an output to the INF function. So in that INF function, I wrote n1 and n2 partition code which we wrote before. Finally, at the end, I wrote a return render request punc.html, comma r. So let us rename it to output.html. So what happens here is whenever user sends two major and minor premises, it sends the partitioned I mean sentences to the validation function, and the validation functions returns us the final param. So you can see that at the finally there is a called as param. Params contains the name and string dictionary as a key value. So this is what happens in the INF function and the validation function as a whole. And finally, it will render the output in the output.html. And you can see that I've wrote an R. So R is the one which contains the param. So I wrote R is a variable which contains a return value of the validation function. So this is the views.py and index.html. Now there is one more thing left where we need to add the urls.py. So as we have created a new function, we need to add it to the urls.py. So to add that, we need to write same thing, but here we need to keep inf.inf. Here in place of name, we need to write, so it will rightly map whenever user sends a request to it, and it calls the inf function in the. Now it is all set to run the server. Now let us run the server, and you can see that the server is running at a local host. So let us see the output. Now let us see the output. So you can see that this is the major premise and the minor. Now let us enter some sample input for it and let's check whether it's working. Now I've given a major premise as he studies very hard and he's the best boy, but I have not given any minor premise. As per the rules, if you don't give any premise, it should be for sure simplification. Now let us run it and let's see. And you can see that it gave the conclusion as simplification. So therefore he studies well. So this is how the simplification works, and you can also try the other syllogisms. So this is all about this project. Let us deploy this project in the Python Anywhere website. So before you deploy, we need to zip our project in zip folder and store it in a particular folder. So whenever we are deploying, it will be helpful. Now let us deploy our application. So go to the Python Anywhere website and choose a username and email and password, and let me register and show you. You can see a pop-up after a successful creation of your account, and click on end. You can open a bash console and find in the new console. You can see console will be open. And parallel, make sure you open this website Python Anywhere deployment. So I'll also keep this in the readme file. Let us copy the first line which creates a Python virtual environment in the bash console. As it's a virtual computer, we need to install the Python. Let's write this and rename the virtual environment test. So as we are using Python 3.7, we need to rename it as 3.7 and keep the virtual test as test. So it is going to create a virtual environment named as test. So after that, you need to install the pip install Django. So as we are installing Python, it we need to install all the required modules in this project. Now after installing successfully, we need to install the Django, and you can paste this pip install Django. It will take some time as we are dealing in the virtual environment, so it depends on your internet connection. So make sure you have good internet connection while installing Django and Python virtual environment. So after installing Django, we need to go to the files. We need to upload the which I told, like, we need to upload the zip file which I told you before to make sure. So I've uploaded the zip file. You can see that rules inf. This is the zip folder I've uploaded. Now after installing Django, it takes some time. So after that, we need to unzip the file folder which I've uploaded now. Now let us unzip the file. So to unzip a file, we need to write unzip and the file name, that is rules. So in my case, I have named that. So you can rename the file. This is how you unzip. So after unzip, you can see that it will unzip all the folders and it will store in the virtual environment. Now let us go back to the web. So here you can see that until now we have added no web apps, right? So click on add a new web app, click on next, and here you can see a frameworks, but you need to click on configuration, and we need to follow Python 3.7, and after that click on next. And now you can see an interface about our application. So the first thing we should need to do is, as we have created a virtual environment, we need to map it here. So you should name, as I named it as test in my case, you need to write test and you should need to click. So if the test environment is created, it will show this, or else it will show an error. So make sure you keep correctly. After this, we need to now write the code for WSGI. So you can see a code subsection. Click on this WSGI configuration. You can see like a lot of code is there, right? So remove that, copy from the code which I've where this help.django.com there, where the Python environment provides you documentation to deploy the application. So you can go there and copy the Django WSJ file, and you need to make few changes. So in the place of my user, you need to type your your particular. So in my case, I have kept rules. I my site. You need to also keep where the folder name. I have named it both the same, so it I should keep the same here to make sure that what is the file name. And so after that, also change it on the line 9 where you need to write os.enroll. So again you should go there, and after you need to save it. To now go to files. So there we need to do few changes, such as in the settings.py, as we have dealing with templates and localhost, we need to make it changes. Now you can see that here we are wrote hello host thing, right? So make sure to keep it as start. Make sure you also make debug to. After that, go down. That's it. Save this and go back to the files again. And now the change is that we need to locate the templates folder. So what happens here is, as it's a virtual computer, it does the path changes. So you need to map it correct. So the best way is to copy the path from You can get it like again go to the files and see the settings.py and need to rename DIRs of. So let us go here and go to settings. That is the reason here we need. So before it is DIRs of temp, so you need to remove it as it will rightly map the function. So let us save this, come out. So after a successful changes, you need to click on this reload button. Whenever if you want to change the code, and after that to apply the changes, you need to keep this reload button so that it. Let's see the steps what are left. At last, there is one rule left, that is basically Python Envir works for 3 months. So to extend that, you need to click 3 until run 3 months from today. So it will update that. So if you see that now it updated to Wednesday 14 April 2021. So you can click whenever you want, whenever it's expiring. So let us now see the website. And you can see that this is the output of our website and it is live in rules.inf.python env. So now we are successfully able to create an application and even deploy it in the local, not even local server, but in cloud. So thank you for this project. Thank you.